Weather on News Radio KMAN is brought to you by Sunset Zoo. Join the Sunset Zoo April 19th to celebrate Earth Day featuring animal enrichment, community booths, scavenger hunts, and more.
Your News Radio KMAN Manhattan area weather forecast. Right now, partly cloudy skies, 66 degrees, steady wind out of the south at 20, gusting as high as 25. Tonight, increasing clouds, a low around 52, that wind gusting still as high as 25. Tomorrow, sunny and a high near 25, wind holding steady from 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy and a low around 47, that wind finally dying down a little bit. We're getting set for the game here on News Radio KMAN.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
There's only one person to blame for last night's loss for Houston, just one person. And I'm not talking about Emmanuel Sharp. I'm not talking about Kelvin Sampson. Not talking about anybody of Florida. One person to blame for Houston's loss last night in the national championship game. That'd be Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He was there. The biggest jinx in sports history was in attendance. And guess who lost? His team. I don't even know if he's an alumni of Houston. But Houston does lose the national championship game, an absolute heartbreaker for the Cougs. 65-63 the final, where Houston had, they did not score a point in the last minute 25 of the game after a free throw make to take a 1-point lead. And in that final few moments, they turned the basketball over 4 times. Welcome to the game. Mitch Fortner alongside Cole Dutchendorf with you until 5:30. And stick with us at 5:30. We got coverage of K-State baseball. Batcats looking to correct, a rough weekend. Down at O'Brate Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where the Cats get swept by, at the time, heading into the series, the last place team in the Big 12, Oklahoma State, who have now climbed out of dead last in the Big 12. Meanwhile, K-State has dropped a couple of spots. And after having a game lead in the Big 12, entering the weekend, they're now a game back in the Big 12 standings to the Kansas Jayhawks, where they will play not this weekend, but next weekend in Lawrence. But tonight it's K-State against Missouri State, 6:05 for the first pitch. And pregame coverage at 5:30 here on K-Man with Matt Walters and Coach Mike Clark on the broadcast. Well, the House settlement nearing its finalization. We'll get to those details a little bit later on in our first hour. It's Tuesday, so we will have a Jabroni of the Week, and we have 2 more K-State women's basketball players entering the transfer portal. It's now more than just, we're going to have a whole new starting lineup. We're going to have a whole new team for K-State women's basketball this next season as the transfer portal still open. Meanwhile, on the football side, that portal is about to open back up in 8 days. So I'm sure Chris Kleiman is really looking for some decisions quickly. As, again, that House settlement against the NCAA, it's done-ish, but still open to clear up some loose ends. And I'm going to actually be leaving at 5 so I can get to Toyton Family Stadium. Cole Dutchendorf takes over for a short second hour, and he wants to talk Kansas City Chiefs. He wants to talk free agency as we are getting close to the NFL draft, which opens up, we're a little over 2 weeks away on April 24th. And, of course, on the 24th, we'll have our annual The Game draft, which a category is yet to be determined. Cole, you look like you got something to say.
That'll be my first The Game draft. I'm pretty pumped for that, and I'm always pumped for some Chiefs content. So,
always,
best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I'm always open to suggestions. I have not made a decision on that category for our annual draft. So you can always text us, 785-537-1350. You can also tweet at us. At Mitch the Ford is my personal account. At The Game KMAN on X to put in your suggestions. You want to ask us a question or comment, feel free to do so. That would have been great for the Big 12 last night to get an NCAA tournament win. First of all, and I hate doing this, but I'm going to tip my cap to Florida. Florida was the gutsiest team, and I think overall as they win the national championship, even before that game, I thought they were the best team of the NCAA tournament. This game was billed as Florida's offense against Houston's defense. Now, don't take away what the teams can do on the other end, for sure, but Florida was certainly known for their high-caliber offense. They were nobody was shooting better than Florida in this tournament. And for Houston, they dictate the game and the pace of the game with their defense, and they kill you with a slow pace but an efficient offense. Well, what it came down to was the opposite. Houston grinding to score points, and Florida buckling down and making stops with their defense, which was not the first time we had seen that in the tournament. Florida had to pull off some pretty clutch wins in this tournament to get to the national championship game, period. They had multiple comebacks in this tournament, and 3 straight games, significant comebacks. Boy, the Elite Eight, Texas Tech should have won that. But Tech led by 10 points in the second half. They led by 9 with 3 minutes to go. Florida makes a comeback. Auburn is up 9 points in the second half. And Florida makes a comeback, and then poor Houston, man. They're up 12, and when you're in a big game like that, you're in the second half. It really doesn't depend on or determine, how much time is left on the clock. When you build a decent lead, you're up 4 scores with the basketball, and it feels like all momentum is on your side. You start to taste it a little bit. I mean, I went through the same feelings back in Madison Square Garden 2 years ago where K-State's up 7 points. Not a lot of time left. K-State with the basketball. They're playing hot at that moment. Marquise Noel is feeling it more than anybody else. There's no more pain in that ankle. He's ready to shoot it. He lets go at 3 that just barely misses, but you're kind of starting to taste it just a little bit because you feel like you're so close and you're just right there of making it to a Final Four, and you start to choke a little bit. Well, I think it's fair to say Houston started to choke a little bit because they struggled to score on offense. There was a moment in the second half where Houston failed to score on 9 consecutive possessions, led to a Florida comeback. It was sparked by their defense, but then it appeared that Florida was just much better on the offensive end by getting to the paint. And this will never go down as one of the best shooting performances in Final Four or NCAA tournament history or national championship history. Neither team really shot it well. I mean, in that first half, it was just ugly outside shooting. Neither team could hit a 3. So defense was dictating. That played heavily into Houston's favor, and that gave them a slight lead heading into halftime. Florida was the better team, and this is where I tip my cap, and I hate to say it, but I don't like Todd Golden. And it's more on even though we don't know each other, never spoke a word to each other, it was just by observing him 2 years ago. Maybe he's a different person now. This was a first-year head coach 2 years ago when they came into Manhattan to take on K-State. Jerome Tang's first year. And it got a little chippy, actually, between Todd Golden and Jerome Tang. But I was sitting there, and I heard things from an opposing head coach that I'd never heard before, like the name-calling, the disrespect, the talking behind people's back. Like, it was things Todd Golden would never have the cojones to say to anybody's face. It was ugly stuff. And yet 2 years later, here he is winning a national championship with a team that was bounced in the first round the prior year. I don't like Todd Golden, but I feel like you have to respect what he's been able to do in a short amount of time. In college basketball this day with the transfer portal and NIL, you can turn around a program extremely quickly. Maybe a little bit not as quickly as other teams are this day and age, but he got it turned around and won a national championship in his third year at just 39 years old. And you want to add more pain to Houston today. I mean, I can't imagine that pain. But he is the youngest head coach to win a national championship since Jim Valvano with NC State back in 1983 against who? Houston. just more ugly, heartbreaking history for the Houston Cougars.
Well, you talk about building a program. That's on their starting five. It was Condon, who is the main guy who started his career at Florida, and then being able to find the guys out of Belmont. Obviously, a guy like Martin, maybe a little bit more on the radar because of the FAU run a couple of years back, but finding a Walter Clayton Jr. out of Iona, and to find those mid-major guys and to develop them into what they've become this year. I mean, they went on a big run in the SEC tournament. I believe they won that one as well, beating a couple of. I mean, SEC was loaded this year. Took down Tennessee, Auburn a couple of times this season. Once in the Final Four when it mattered the most. They had an unbelievable run to finish this year. They were one of the hottest teams in basketball to end this season, and they continued that. And I believe they're the first team ever to come back from 9+ in the Elite Eight, Final Four, and National Championship game, come back and win. And that has a lot about a team's mentality to be able to be in those spots consistently and be able to come back. And for Houston, man, they're going to be kicking themselves for a long time because they had that game and just couldn't quite get it across the finish line. Couple of costly mistakes late. Couple of mistakes when Florida was going on that first run to cut it back to, they got it tied actually. They were down 12, and pretty quickly after that it was 48 all, and then it became just a dogfight down the stretch. But again, you got to ultimately respect what Florida was able to do, not only in this game but just this season, to have the season that they did in the SEC and then go on that run in the SEC tournament and then obviously winning March Madness.
Probably speak for a lot of people to say a lot of people felt bad for Kelvin Sampson. I don't know if Andy Reid is necessarily the best example here, but Andy Reid had already been coaching a long time before he won a Super Bowl. He had been there a handful of times, hadn't won a Super Bowl at least once. Well, Kelvin Sampson, that was his third Final Four. Still hasn't won a national championship. He had been there once with Oklahoma. This was his second time with Houston, and he's 69 years old. I would imagine he'll still be doing this for a while. He's got one of the best jobs in the world. He has sustained a culture that's so hard to do. That would be really hard to let go. So I'm sure he's not going anywhere, and I'm sure he's going to have a great team next year. But really for the Big 12, and I think this is where I for sure, speak for a lot of people, especially if you like a Big 12 school, you root for the Big 12, you would have loved this. Because I felt like, man, the SEC was just crushed down our throat this year. Football, men's basketball, women's basketball, when it comes to the best time slots, ABC coverage, getting games on an ESPN channel, not ESPN Plus, the SEC got a lot more coverage than anybody else. And I don't think it was even close. They were just forced on us, and the SEC comes away with that championship over the Big 12. I wanted that one thing this year over the SEC. I don't know what the line was heading into the game. Felt like it was going to be competitive. No way that was going to be a blowout like the women's championship was. I felt very good about UConn winning that, and they did. I feel bad for being right about Florida. They just looked like they were the better team. They were down that final stretch. Just wish we could have got that for the Big 12. Okay, so on K-State's news here, let's get to this here real quick. Not a little bit of surprise, but not really. This isn't a heartbreaker like a Zy Walker is, but two players for K-State women's basketball have entered the transfer portal. Amani Lester, who played here for 2 years, and then Gisela, I think, was here for 3 years. Gisela Sanchez has entered the transfer portal. I've been very honest about those two. They're not starters. So a little bit of surprise just because they've been here a while, but not surprised because they probably want something bigger. And it's just not going to happen here at K-State. Amani, of course, buried on the depth chart behind Aoka Lee, behind Kennedy Taylor, and was going to be recruited over. Gisela Sanchez, so late in her career with a year to go, probably wants something a little bit more as well. But being here for 3 years for K-State is thought pretty big. Gisela, boy, she had her ups and downs, but nobody, for the most part, was more confident. That's the word. Confident with shooting, despite low percentages in her career, to shoot that rock, and especially from 3. She always believed in her game. A lot of the time, that ball wasn't going through the hole. I don't even know. How many threes? Let's take a guess. How many threes did Gisela Sanchez hit this year?
Maybe like 12.
12? I was thinking, yeah. I might take the over on that. At least it felt like she hit a few more. Like, my guess would be 15. But probably wasn't a ton. She was probably a 25% three-point shooter. She only maybe 15 minutes a game.
She had 12.
Oh, there you go. Good guess. She hit like 3
12
in one
48,
game.
by the way, I'll add 25% on the season.
Oh, I got that right. So there you go. Amani Lester, she had her flashes, like Gisela, had her flashes. So they're no longer with K-State. And like I said earlier, this is going to be a much different team. We already knew that. Probably just now more than we maybe have expected. I don't know what exactly I expected with K-State's roster, portal, who's all going to leave, how many spots K-State's going to have. We already knew it was going to be a pretty decent amount with all the seniors. And then you bring in 4 freshmen, which might be the best freshman class in K-State women's basketball history. But only one addition with Ramaya White, the sophomore, who will be a sophomore, from Virginia Tech. That's it. So I'm going to count this up real quick. I do believe K-State has 6 spots open.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll fill all those, but there's a lot of portal work to do, and I would imagine it's only going to get, well, I don't know if, I would imagine it's only going to get bigger than Ramaya White. Not like bigger as in size. I'm talking about bigger as in what they did previously.
You got to hope at this point, because it's been, Taryn is now the only return. If Kendall Taylor does not get her waiver to play next year.
Kennedy.
I keep on saying Kendall. Yeah. I don't know why that's been stuck in my head the last week. I apologize. Kennedy Taylor, if she gets that waiver, if she doesn't, Taryn will be the only player that returns from last year's team. So it'll literally be top to bottom a completely different roster. So it'll be interesting to see. They have some work to do in the portal. They have to get some proven players who have done it at the Power 4, even the Group of 4 stage, and get some legitimate talent, because they have a lot to replace. And some of it is not replaceable. You're not going to replace an Ayoka Lee. You're not going to replace a Serena Sundell. But you do need to replace you just need roster spots at this point. You don't necessarily want to go into the season with just 4 freshmen in a dream.
Let's take a timeout, and we still have Jabroni of the Week to come here in hour number 1. Hour number 2, a short hour 2, we're out at 5:30. Cole's going to bring you his free agency report card for the Kansas City Chiefs as we are 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. He's a big Chiefs guy. I'm looking forward to hearing that segment on my drive over to Toyton Family Stadium. When we come back, the latest on the House versus the NCAA. It's not officially done yet. That's coming up next.
You're in the game on News Radio KMAN.
Manhattan Broadcasting is keeping it local. Dollars spent locally today help build a better community for tomorrow.
D&I Plumbing, Heating, and Air will provide honest and quality service when you need it most. From a leaky faucet to replacing your water heater. Trust the experts at D&I Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Your York and other makes and models local dealer. Call 537-7138 today.
Turn your memories into a masterpiece at Candlewood Frame Shop. Whether it's framing your favorite pictures floating around in the digital cloud or creating a shadow box with cherished things or memorable events. Candlewood Frame Shop. Let them turn your stories into a masterpiece.
For a once-in-a-lifetime experience, engagement ring shopping simply can't be duplicated on a computer screen. At Fifely Jewelers, you'll be pleasantly surprised by our pricing compared to buying online, and we offer financing. Plus, you'll have peace of mind by shopping locally with Fifely Jewelers.
Manhattan Broadcasting is keeping it local. Find more great local businesses plus special deals and offers when you keep it local on our website.
At McCown Gordon Construction, we improve lives by building authentic relationships. No matter the project size, our clients enjoy unmatched talent and resources in the Manhattan area market. Early collaboration with our pre-construction team ensures cost certainty, preventing surprises. Whether it's new construction or expansion, our team simplifies complex projects. We build to serve the community. McCown Gordon Construction, proud builder for K-State and the KSU Foundation. Visit McCownGordon.com.
At ESB Financial, we think it makes sense to pay you. That's right, get paid 5.04% annual percentage yield on balances up to $20,000 with our free Kasasa Cash checking account. We'll even refund your ATM fees nationwide, and the best part is there's no monthly service charges or minimum balances to keep. All you have to do to earn your rewards are a few simple things each month. The best part? These things make banking easier. Visit esbfinancial.com to learn more. Special terms may apply. ESB Financial, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Helping your inner circle prepare for emergencies can start in many ways. Put together an emergency kit with Wipe-Wall. Create a family communication plan with your tita. Remind Bai to keep a backup battery charged. It all starts with a simple step, telling those you care about to be ready for the worst. So start a conversation and plan for emergencies together. Get more tips at ready.gov/start. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
The Ramsey Show.
So I am 20 years old, straight out of high school. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona to start my own business selling furniture.
What does selling furniture look like?
So I go around picking it up, clean it up, take really good pictures and sell it. I'll probably do about $100,000 this year net.
Wow.
Some of you are standing around with your finger in your ear. And then you got a 20-year-old with a high school education that's making $100,000 flipping used furniture.
He's laughing all the way to the bank.
Financial advice for everyone. The Ramsey Show. Weekdays from 10 to 1 on News Radio KMAN.
I'm Cole Dutchendorf with the Game Sports Update. Two more Wildcat women entered the portal Tuesday with Imani Lester and Gisela Sanchez both set to transfer. Lester averaged 2.4 points per game and 2.7 rebounds per game last season, with her career high coming against UCF in the Big 12 tournament with 8 points. Sanchez averaged 4.2 points per game on 15 minutes per game last season, with her season high coming against Kansas on senior day when she had 12. With the two departures, K-State now has 6 open roster spots. After being swept over the weekend at Oklahoma State, the K-State baseball team looks to get right at home tonight, hosting Missouri State. The Bears wrapped up a weekend series at Southern Illinois yesterday with a 9-5 10th inning win. The Bears are 16-14 overall, but 7-2 in Missouri Valley Conference games, while K-State seeks its 21st win against 11 losses. 10 of those wins have come at home, as the Cats have not dropped a tilt at Toyton Family Stadium to date. Coverage begins at 5:30 on News Radio KMAN. U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkin wants college sports landmark proposal reworked. House versus NCAA, a proposed settlement of 3 athlete compensation antitrust cases against the NCAA, proposes a myriad of changes, including roster limits. As the hearing concluded on Monday, Wilkin all but said that she will not grant final approval without changes. Lawyers report back to Wilkin in 1 week.
Wednesday on the game, we'll have Mason Voth from K-State Online joining us. We'll get back to K-State basketball recruiting, talk about Abdi Bashir, who was 38% from three-point range. He made the second most amount of three-pointers in all of Division I college basketball this season. His 3.85 per game was the most in college basketball, essentially replacing Brendan Hansen, who just hours prior of K-State landing Bashir, he enters the transfer portal. And then we'll get into observations on K-State spring football with the open practice earlier today, which I was not able to attend. Second year in a row. It's just bad luck for me with my dentist appointments that it falls at the exact same time. I can't postpone because where I go, they're like backed up 4 months in appointments, so I'm not going to miss a cleaning. So we'll get to that tomorrow. Jabroni of the week still to come, plus Cole on the Chiefs free agency report card heading to the NFL draft is coming up here in hour number 2. A short hour 2 are at 5:30. Bad Cats taking on Missouri State, and first pitch is at 6:05. All right, so earlier today, we knew Saturday, as a matter of fact, that, first of all, we knew that prior to Saturday, potentially the House versus NCAA, lawsuits, student athletes prior to NIL becoming a thing, suing to get money they could have made, blah, 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 so on and so forth, about all that, the $2.8 billion in damages that like 80,000 student athletes are going to chop up themselves out of this lawsuit. That's part of it. But we knew on Saturday, and this was talked about before the Elite Eight officially began, and that's Charlie Baker said, look, we're actually probably not going to settle this lawsuit on Monday. And then we got the confirmation on Monday from the judge that's overseeing this in Oakland, U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkin. And she said on Monday that she will not grant final approval to the proposed settlement on 3 athlete compensation antitrust cases against the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences unless the parties make changes to an agreement. They tie up some loose ends. There's a couple of things that obviously stand out. Now, there's more than that, but I think there's 2 things that most of us are really interested in, and we'll take a look at those. So one of them is the justification for a setup under which athletes' name, image, and likeness deals with entities other than their school that have the value of more than $600 would be subject to a review process. Now, that's to assess their legitimacy within the marketplace. This is so boosters just don't try to go around the cap of $20.5 million and make deals that play into transfers or recruits coming to that school and getting paid NIL outside of that $20.5 million that schools are allotted starting in July that are a part of revenue sharing. And that number is going to keep going up every year through 10 years up to $30 million. That's a number that's going to continue to climb. But the power programs have decided on $20.5 million to start everything out. Now, that's very interesting as well because it also comes into play of like how does that $20.5 million play out? And these athletes are still allowed to make NIL deals outside of the $20.5 million that's going to be handed out by the school themselves, which, of course, the majority is going to be, like it's estimated, on average, 75% is going to football, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and then outside of that, depending on the school, if you have wrestling, if you have softball, if it's baseball, volleyball, soccer, the rest gets 5%, which is roughly over $400,000. But there needs to be a review process to try to keep things even, keep things fair. And all the power conferences have all agreed on this, but there needs to be justification. Things like, will this third party be saying no to NIL deals? Is this based on the market value of NIL and so on and so forth? Because look, even though this House versus NCAA deal, which we thought could have been done today, Chris Kleiman questioned that, and it looks like they're going to get the rest of this week. Potentially a deal will be done this week, but I'm sure that everybody's like, can we get something done? Because the transfer portal opens next week for football. Once again, the second transfer portal is going to open up. Even though the settlement is close to being done, there's going to be so many lawsuits after this. There's people going to be suing. There's so many questions still to be answered based on, based on gender, based on Title IX, being fair, being even. It's still going to continue to be messy, but this settlement has to be ironclad. It has to be no loose ends. Law of the land until amendments are made at some point because of lawsuits. This is a start for sure. And then the other side of this, the other thing has to do with roster limits. And Judge Wilkin thinks that these lawyers should talk again. And can we work out a deal where, especially with football, and it's not just affecting football, because today was also used for any objections, which there were a handful of female student athletes that had their moment to argue a particular thing. Like Livy Dunn, for example, the highest earner when it comes to female student athletes, a gymnast at LSU, was there today in Oakland to bring an argument, and it's kind of based on how she would have made a lot of money if this and this happened earlier, and she's sticking up for the schools that are also going to be losing student athletes because of these new roster limits. It's going to hurt the smaller programs. She argued more than sports like football, and of course football this is really gravitating towards around because of the cut down to 105, which Chris Kleiman does not like. He argues, what's even the reason for 105? Where does that number come from? I think it's based around programs not stockpiling talent. Can't exactly use that to answer the 105, but that's an educated guess on my part. But Judge Wilkin is like, can we phase this into the new era? Can we not just start kicking a whole bunch of players off teams and they all got to find somewhere to go when walk-ons aren't really a whole lot? It's not really a thing anymore. So can these student athletes be grandfathered in? And I'm like, does that make things easier, or is it just delaying the inevitable? Delaying, ripping off the Band-Aid, and we just slowly glide our way into a new era. But that's basically where we stand this week.
And for that last point specifically with the roster limits, she was talking to, it's the NCAA conference's lawyer, Rakesh Kalaru, and he actually pushed back a little bit before he was offered his chance to rebuttal or whatever. She basically said, "Yeah, how about you just take this advice and say I'll get back. I'll talk to my client and get back with you instead." He kind of pushed back in the moment, and I thought it was interesting talking about that 105 specifically, that number for football. He said that the roster limits were not reached arbitrarily, but were based on the total number of athletes who actually participate in competitions in the various sports over the course of a season. Now that could be all-encompassing for, rowing and tennis, et cetera, down the line. I think it's interesting that, again, there still isn't a ton of maybe that clarification that Chris Kleiman talked about with 105 still seems like kind of just a random number to, throw to a wall and hope it sticks. And it'll be interesting to see, because that was one thing that Wilkins did mention, that this needs to be reviewed and redrafted for when they meet next week. So it'll be interesting to see if and how this specific part of it will be reviewed and potentially redrafted, and we'll see how that could potentially impact Chris Kleiman and their coaching staff decisions down the hole.
Yeah, losing the walk-on aspect of college football really stings as a K-State fan. And to give you an example of that, right now where we stand, there's a player named Bryce Norenberg who late in the year started to return some kicks. He's a former high school quarterback. He's from Olathe, Kansas. And just to give you like a brief observation from spring football today that I heard about, I don't know what that means for right now, but he was working on the two deep with the wide receivers. So is this a walk-on late last year that started to blossom at practice? He got an opportunity to return some kicks. And now is it is he maybe starting to earn himself a spot somewhere on the team, maybe to battle for a spot on the 2 or 3 deep at wide receiver? I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying he's going to be the next star. He's the next Jordy Nelson at K-State, but you're going to lose that. You're going to lose those stories by this new change, which it's a completely new era of college athletics with the revenue sharing and the roster limits.
And that's the part that stinks. You're going to obviously have development on your top end talent. Those players are going to get better over time as well. But I think you can definitely make the argument that it's on the bottom end of the roster where you're going to see the most growth and development if they come in a little bit more raw, a little bit more unpolished, given the time in the program, with conditioning, with weight training, with practices day in, day out, with everything that entails. I think you see more of that growth and development for those specific players. So to your point, you're going to get less of those feel-good stories about the walk-on who's now he's having this sort of success. I know Texas A&M had their like 12th man kickoff where they had a full kickoff against one of the trash teams with walk-on players. Like, you don't get cool stuff like that. I think that sort of thing is part of what makes college sports so great, specifically with football, with the walk-on side of things. And so we'll just see how that kind of goes, what happens to that down the line.
Well, I think it's happened. I think it's been documented that it just happens more at K-State than it really happens anywhere else. The walk-on success. And last week we went down a whole list of, it was a list of 20 or 30 guys that ended up having some pretty major success at K-State that were previous walk-ons. And a small percentage of that, a handful, maybe a little bit more of a handful, I'll have to go look, went on to play professional football. Dalton Schoen is one of those latest successes that was actually just a little bit later than usual because he did actually go, I think, a year maybe without playing professional football, and then he starts working out at K-State, works out during the pro day, and ends up with an opportunity to play in the Canadian Football League, and now he's a star in the Canadian Football League, and sometimes for people, which is not the case now, but for some that actually blossoms into another opportunity at the NFL. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, guys, it's Tuesday. You know what that means? We have a Jabroni of the Week to crown, and it's a good one this week. It's after these words.
Your home for K-State sports.
Good spot in the clear. They make a man miss, and it's easy. Touchdown, Kansas State. And the Cats get closer to the conference championship.
This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
The secret to getting ahead is getting started. The words of Mark Twain. If you know what it's like to be behind and you're looking to get ahead for a change, it's Central Time. Open a new opportunity checking account with Central National Bank that makes finances easy. Account opening is subject to qualifications. Restrictions may apply.
Central National Bank, money for life.
Member FDIC. Money for getting started since 1884.
Friends, this is your personal invitation to visit Midland Exteriors Open House Saturday, April 12th from 11 to 4. Get ready for outdoor games, food and refreshments, exclusive giveaways, and unbeatable discounts on what your home's exterior requires. Plus, you can meet K-State stars Avery Johnson and Joe Jackson. They'll be signing autographs from 1 to 3. Midland Exteriors Open House Saturday, April 12th from 11 to 4 at 8226 Southport Drive. Learn more at midlandexteriors.com.
It wasn't long ago that air conditioning wasn't a standard luxury item found in businesses and homes. Can you imagine life without it now? The heating and air industry has changed through the years, but one company has remained constant since 1981. For over 40 years, M&S Plumbing has kept Manhattan and the surrounding communities cool. M&S repairs all brands and offers 24-hour emergency service. So if your AC needs serviced, call on a name you can trust.
Call the experts who care. M&S Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
Suicide is preventable, and help is always available. If you're feeling hopeless or overwhelmed, you're not alone. Every day, lives are saved when people reach out for support. Pawnee Mental Health is here to help you through the hard moments, because your life matters. Call our 24/7 crisis hotline at 1-800-609-2002 or visit us at 1558 Hayes Drive in Manhattan to begin your path to healing. Remember, there is hope and there is help. Let's take the first step together.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
America's hunters and target shooters, along with firearm, ammunition, and archery manufacturers, have invested more than $46 billion to help state fish and wildlife agencies manage and protect wildlife and wildlands across America. For more information, visit outdoorstewards.org.
Ashiro's work is never done. You care for the house, the kids, and our future. We're so grateful for all you do. Now, it's time to care for yourself and save a little more for retirement. A free 3-minute online check can give you the personalized tips you need to boost your retirement savings now. Visit aceyourretirement.org today.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Kansas is well known for our changing weather. Sometimes it changes for the worst. News Radio KMAN is the region's most trusted voice during severe weather. Thunderstorms, hail, tornadoes, and flooding? Trust KMAN for the latest information to keep you and your family safe.
Your News Radio KMAN Manhattan area weather forecast. Right now, 69 degrees, overcast skies, and wind gusts as high as 25 miles per hour out of the southeast. Tonight, increasing clouds, a low around 52, wind gusts as high as 25 out of the south. Tomorrow, sunny and a high near 74 with that wind holding steady from 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy, a low around 47 with that wind finally calming down 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Know your role and shut your mouth. You jabroni. You jabronis hit the jackpot.
That Hollywood blonde jabroni, Hulk Hogan.
Ow. Is this Jabroni's name?
Jabroni of the Week.
Man, I really enjoyed putting this week's Jabroni of the Week together. There was a lot of funny stories out there, crazy stories, or, Jabroni stories, which 3 dishonorable mentions will culminate with my Jabroni of the Week. We're going to start in France. I've never watched a full rugby match. I've seen clips here and there. I'm not necessarily sure how it all works. But there's a big tournament going on in Europe right now. It's the European Rugby Champions Cup. The showdown is taking place this month and had a round of 16 matchup over the weekend. France, Toulouse, taking on England's Sale. Now, you can't play rugby without a ball, right? Well, Toulouse decided that they tapped 3 French paratroopers to partake in a pregame ceremony where they parachute into the stadium and deliver the game ball. One of the paratroopers who had the ball doing his thing, doing the circling around the stadium, and it's one of the stadiums like a soccer stadium. It's got the canopy over the seats because they expect some rain. They don't want to get their spectators rained on all the time. The parachute got stuck in the ceiling of the stadium, and this dude was just hanging there. He was hanging there for a good 40 minutes before and they actually got the fire department to come out. You can hear, if you find the right video, you can hear in the background, which I get it, because they had to clear everybody out of the way that were in the stands, and I would bet he was probably a good, I get these Owen Hart flashbacks of him dying at Kemper Arena back in 99. He was probably a good 70 feet, roughly, in the air, so that would obviously been a devastating fall to land in the stands, but they saved him, and he's okay. Our next dishonorable mention takes us to SEC softball. This was crazy. So I'm going to give it to the umpires of the Sunday game, Arkansas against Florida. Now, Florida, second in the nation, Arkansas 12th. Big 3-game series this past weekend in Gainesville. And to take it to the 8th on Sunday, we're tied at 6. Arkansas has runners at first and second. And Carly Davison lays down a bunt. Well, home plate ump throws his hands up and calls the play dead. He says Davison touched the ball. Florida catcher Jocelyn Erickson, she still fields the bunt, throws it to first, and she would have got the runner out. So now this is kind of a weird moment. This play goes under review. The umpires go review it. They come out with no decision. Umpires then break out a rule book, a physical rule book, and start thumbing through the thing. They're going through pages. They still couldn't come to a ruling based on a rule that they had to review. Like they were unsure about a rule. Never clearly got an explanation on this, by the way, but this was the assumption of why it took so long. They had to break out a rule book. Well, they still couldn't figure out by the rule book, so they had to call the SEC in Birmingham, Alabama to get clarification. The review took 37 minutes.
That's gross.
To figure this out.
And you thought the end of basketball games were bad with the reviews. That's disgusting.
It turns out that Arkansas's batter did not touch the ball after it's all said and done, and she got first base. They awarded her first base, even though she would have been thrown out. As you can imagine, Florida's coach was just TO'd, comes out of the dugout, starts kicking dirt around, gets tossed. Yeah, a mess.
That's how all coach-umpire interactions should end, if you're doing it right.
My last is on. Oh yeah, once you got a coach starting to kick around dirt, burying home plate, it's an all-timer.
I love it.
My last honorable mention is going to go to again, I don't have a name. This is also a kid that's not 18. Rio Rancho high school baseball player out of New Mexico, taking on their rival, big series against La Suvia High School in New Mexico. It turns out prior to the game, they had 15 players suspended. For what? Well, it turned out after a while, only one player is going to be suspended, but they had to suspend pretty much the whole team because of an investigation. It turns out prior to the game, somebody decided to take the water cooler for the opposing team and urinate in it. They urinated in it. Finally, one of the players owned up to it. This kid is now facing 15 counts of battery, and he was charged, and he was arrested.
That's rough. There was something with water cooler in Kansas a couple years back, I believe, like between Washburn and baseball, I think, with some basically poisoned the water, with paint remover or something.
I don't remember that story.
I'll do my research while you give the Jabroni of the week.
Did we all have that kid in high school that you think that kid would have done that?
I think if we sat here, I think we could probably figure it out.
I know exactly who that kid would have been. I don't know. Heston seems like a real goody two-shoes school, so I don't know. Probably don't have those bad apples down south. And then finally, my Jabroni of the week. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but guys, there's only one person to blame for Houston's loss in the NCAA tournament in the national championship game. It's not Kelvin Sampson. It's not Emmanuel Sharp that turned the ball over on the last two possessions. Houston turned it over 4 times in the last minute 20, blowing the lead against Florida for the Gators to win the national championship, their first since 2006, going back to back. There's only one person to blame. Texas Senator Ted Cruz did it again. He should know by now not to show up to a big game. If he loves his teams as much as he appears to be, don't show up anymore. Because even if he's as big of a sports fan as he says he is, he should be superstitious. He's a big baseball fan. He's a huge Astros fan. There should be superstition in this. He should be aware that he is the biggest sports jinx alive today. According to sports bettors, since 2017, sports bettors are 18-2 when Ted Cruz shows up to support his team in person. The Houston Texans in the playoffs, the Houston Astros in the playoffs, the Houston Rockets, now the Houston Cougars. There's probably somebody I'm forgetting, but pretty much every time he comes to see his favorite team in person and it's a big game, they lose. According to bettors, if you would have bet $100 each time Ted Cruz showed up to one of these games, you would have profited by now $3,000. And look what happened. The Houston Chronicle tweeted out at halftime that Ted Cruz is in a suite. He's hanging out. He's at the national championship game. And what happened after that tweet happened? Houston blows a 12-point lead and they lose a national championship game. Ted Cruz, Texas Senator, is my Jabroni of the week.
I did look it up. He went to Houston in high school. He didn't go to Houston College. He was Princeton and then Harvard, the average politician route. But he did go to high school in the Houston area, so from Houston, essentially.
Well, Houston does have multiple colleges, but Rice, Houston.
You might
Baseball,
take Princeton over those two.
What? Say that again.
You might take Princeton over those two.
Princeton? Did you say Princeton?
Yeah.
Princeton? The hell does Princeton have to do with this?
That's where he went to college.
Oh, well.
Princeton and Harvard.
I'm talking about just like, well, yes. Ivy League, Ivy League fans can be the craziest.
Really?
About their affiliation, about the gear they wear. I mean, they announce when they meet somebody, they always announce the school they went to and the year they graduated.
Well, Andy Bernard from The Office with the
That is
Cornell.
true. That is true. But Ted Cruz, I'm never like a hater on, oh, you didn't go to that school. You're not a real fan. You shouldn't be rooting. Blah, blah. No, I mean, I grew up around here. I didn't go to K-State. I technically worked for K-State, but I'm a K-State fan for sure. So I don't hate on anybody for being that way, but you got to have some self-awareness that even if you're not superstitious,
you got to bite the bullet.
Yeah, just don't show up.
Mm-hmm. You
Do
gotta
yourself
know
a favor.
at that certain point. I mean, you've seen this many heartbreaking games.
At least
you gotta
maybe
have the wherewithal to know that. I mean, this is not going to go well.
Well, at least you could try to buck the trend of, oh, you didn't show up. Well, I wasn't at the game. They still lost.
Right.
This wasn't on me.
Right.
I'm not wearing it this time. And then maybe speak up and say something, and then continue to show up and show that's not on you. But clearly, there's a bad track record. Now, I'm not superstitious. I do like baseball, but like, if I'm a broadcaster and there's a perfect game going on, which Oklahoma State's broadcaster, it was funny because the inning prior to K-State breaking up the perfect game against K-State, the Oklahoma State pitcher, he mentioned a perfect game was going on, and then the next inning, K-State broke it up. So just some bad timing.
Gotta know better.
I was calling a no-hitter one time, and I was trying to do my best to not say no-hitter. I would say no hits. I'd mention the history, but I didn't say no-hitter. Utah breaks it up. In the ninth inning, they end up walking it off in the bottom of the ninth, 2-1. All right, that's going to wrap it up for hour number one. Cole takes over for a short hour two. I'm heading into Toyton Family Stadium. Cole wants to talk Chiefs. He wants to talk free agency report card heading into the NFL draft, which we are 2 weeks away, so that's a hot topic right now. Short hour two of the game. Coming up next, News Radio KMAN.
Transit is more than just getting from point A to point B. It's about connecting community. It's about providing a lifeline for those who need it most. It's about making a difference every day. At Flint Hills Addabus, we're hiring bus operators to help us provide safe, reliable, and friendly transit services across Manhattan, Junction City, Fort Riley, and beyond. With great pay, benefits, and overtime opportunities, your journey starts here. Transit is a career that matters. Apply today at Addabus. For over 50 years, Big Lakes has been making a difference in the lives of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. To continue this mission, they need reliable transportation. You can help Big Lakes on Grow Green Match Day this year. On April 22nd, donations made through the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation will be matched 50%. Your support will fuel their Drive the Future campaign, ensuring safe, dependable transportation for those served by Big Lakes. Visit growgreenmanhattan.com to donate and make twice the impact.
Blueville Nursery's Horticulture Hints radio show comes to your radio every Friday morning at 10 a.m. We will discuss timely gardening and landscape topics to help you keep your lawn and garden in tip-top shape. Blueville Nursery has been your local landscape service and garden store for over 50 years, and we want to share our time-tested techniques with you. From vegetable gardening, spring and summer annuals, to shade trees and lawn care, we'll cover it all. You're welcome to call into the show to ask questions that apply to your own landscape or garden. Stay tuned to Blueville Nursery's Horticulture Hints radio show every Friday at 10 a.m. right here on News Radio KMAN.
Facing criminal charges? That is a road you should not travel alone. At Adair Law, they stand by your side, protecting you with compassion you deserve and securing the best possible outcome for your case. Don't let a mistake define your future. Contact Adair Law and let them fight for your justice and peace of mind. Protecting clients with compassion is what they do. Call Adair Law at 785-776-2000 to schedule your consultation today.
KS State Bank offers convenient services to help make life a little easier. Visit ksstate.bank to learn more. KS State Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. KMAN, Manhattan.
From the KMAN Manhattan Mercury Newsroom, I'm Bernie Vansella with your 5 p.m. news update. No injuries were reported after a prescribed burn got out of control Monday afternoon in far northeastern Riley County. Firefighters from Riley County Fire District No. 1 were dispatched around 3:30 p.m. to the area of Harmony and Dial Roads, northeast of the Swede Creek Recreation Area. County officials say the fire scorched 660 acres, but did not threaten any homes or livestock in the area, and no evacuations were necessary. The state of Kansas deployed the Dickinson County Task Force, and mutual aid was provided by Marshall, Nemaha, and Pottawatomie County volunteer firefighters. Aircraft also dropped water in the fire as it burned into the evening hours Monday. 66 personnel, 50 vehicles, apparatus, 2 planes, and 11 fire stations were on site and had made significant progress by mid-evening. After sunset, winds died down and firefighters were able to get a handle on the head fires in the riverbed, said RCFD No. 1 Deputy Chief Doug Russell. Prescribed burning had been allowed throughout most of the day on Monday until about 4 p.m. as the winds picked up. Finding solutions to Manhattan's housing shortage can be frustrating, though an upcoming summit hopes to find some answers. Community Development Department Planner John Versu says one of the big issues Manhattan faces for expansion comes from what is already surrounding the city.
It's tied to job employment, quality of life issues, and so it goes together. It'd be nice to just focus and say property taxes are too high, but it's a deep, difficult conversation about, well, then how do we lower them? Well, one way is we increase the number of rooftops in the community. Well, if we have those boundary limitations, we have to look at other ways of doing that.
The biannual Manhattan City Housing Summit is planned for April 17th to discuss these issues, among others. The event will be held at Sunset Zoo and will be free to attend. Those interested in attending are asked to pre-register by visiting the city's website. Pottawatomie County officials have tabled a discussion about potentially recording video at the weekly county commission meetings. Public Information Officer Becky Ryan has been tasked in recent weeks with exploring some of the county's options.
We can put cameras in the ceiling, we can have Dawn make her control everything, we can have another person sitting here controlling everything, focus on the speaker, focus in on the speaker that's doing it, focus on the person that's standing up here. It can be done, it's how much you want to spend.
Commissioners weren't opposed to the idea of video, but generally felt any investment should be easily transferable in case the county were to move weekly meetings to a different location. Ryan says videos would also have to be captioned in order to comply with the new Americans with Disabilities Act regulations regarding web content, which take effect in 2027.
Anything that's on the page or posted on our website right now, PDFs, for example, are okay. Future PDFs, after the rule goes into effect, will have to be accessible, which means every document is going to have to be readable by a screen reader for people that are blind. So it needs to follow a certain format. Any pictures on there have to have alt text.
Currently, the county only provides an audio stream via Zoom and archives audio recordings on the county website. Riley County's Planning Board is making some progress on short-term rental regulations. At Monday's County Commission meeting, Planning Director Amanda Webb presented a draft with updated language on licensing requirements and other rules for commissioner feedback. One planned requirement Webb added was a rule that a responsible agent must live in Riley County while guests are in the short-term rental.
It can be the property owner themselves, or they can designate a responsible agent to take on that role for them. Basically, they have to be able to respond within an hour.
She said the planning team wanted the people responsible for the short-term rentals to be local so they can show up at the property when necessary to respond to complaints about the condition of operation or guest conduct. Webb says she chose the language while guests are in residence in case the owner or designated agents wanted to leave town while nobody is renting the property. For News Radio KMAN and the Manhattan Mercury, I'm Bernie Vansella.
News is powered by Central National Bank with locations at the Walmart Supercenter and at College and Claflin. Central National Bank, member FDIC.
KMAN Daily Weather is presented by Fox Business Systems. How much does downtime cost you and your business? Don't let another second go by. Call Fox Business Systems at 776-1452.
Your News Radio KMAN Manhattan area weather forecast. Right now, 70 degrees, wind gusts as high as 28 miles per hour at the south, steadily blowing at 22 miles per hour. Tonight, increasing clouds, a low around 52, still wind gusts as high as 25. Tomorrow, sunny and a high near 75. Again, those winds still gusting as high as 25. Southwest from 10 to 15 miles an hour in the afternoon. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy and a low around 47. We're back for a shortened hour 2 of the game here on News Radio KMAN. I'm Cole Dutchendorf. Mitch Fortner leaving early as he's on the PA tonight. K-State baseball taking on Missouri State, trying to get back on track after getting swept by Oklahoma State this past weekend. Tomorrow, a full 2-hour show of the game, the first of the week and one of 2 total. We'll have a full 2-hour show on Thursday as well. We'll have Mason Voth from K-State Online on tomorrow, and then Thursday trying to reach out to a journalist for USA Today who's been covering that House versus NCAA case just to seek some more clarity, because Mitch and I only know so much of the legalities behind everything. I know, at least speaking for myself, that a lot of that stuff just gets a little far into the weeds for me. So hopefully having someone on who has a lot of knowledge in that area and try to get his perspective as he's been covering that case here over the past couple of weeks. Again, that it's important for K-State because of the things that Coach Kleiman has talked about, the roster limits, but also obviously with a $20.5 potential million budget that'll be set for the power programs. So we'll see how that unfolds and hopefully get some perspective from someone who has a little bit more knowledge on that than Mitch or I, because we can only provide so much in the legal realm of things. Okay, in this one segment that we have here in hour 2, again, short hour 2, out at 5:30 for K-State baseball, I want to go through the free agency report card, my free agency report card for the Chiefs, as pretty much the first wave of free agency, the first and second wave, are pretty much done at this point as we're getting set for the draft. I mentioned this on air, this is a while back, but the older I get, which I say as a 21-year-old, but the older I get, the more I am invested into the offseason. You know, it used to be Super Bowl's done, okay, now we just get to ignore football for the next 6 months, but that's not the case. There's a lot that goes on between February and preseason in August, and I've gotten definitely more into the free agency portion of things. The draft, obviously, is a big one. Even, you know, the summer workouts, summer camps, all of that entails, and that's gotten a lot more interesting to me as I've gotten farther removed from being the youngster that was involved with the Chiefs. So definitely was keeping an eye on a lot of the things that the Chiefs were doing, and overall, I'll give you a spoiler, I'm pretty happy with how the Chiefs did in free agency. They filled a lot of needs, and they set themselves up to be in a pretty good spot, I think, for the draft, where they can hit on maybe some players with some high upside, maybe some more volatility because of what they were able to do in both free agency and then obviously also just retaining some of their marquee players. That's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the re-signings, because we're better to start than taking stock of your team from last year and the players that you were able to retain from last season. Starting off, it was one of the biggest decisions for the Chiefs to make, re-signing guard Trey Smith. They put him on the franchise tag. I love the player. I absolutely love Trey Smith. He's a young buck. He's got a lot of talent on that right side, and his re-signing necessitated the trading of Joe Thuney to the Bears pretty early in the offseason. So, but it's a move that made the Chiefs younger. It's a move that made the Chiefs a little bit more flexible, because they would have had a lot of money tied up between two guards. That's not the premium position on the line. That's obviously in the tackle spot. So the franchise tag for Trey Smith, they do want to get a long-term deal hammered out before, I believe it's July 15th or somewhere in that neighborhood. Otherwise, it'll be Smith playing on that franchise tag. But both camps, as far as I've seen, want to reach an agreement, want to get Trey Smith here, ideally for 5 years, so that they can put that money, because it's going to be a lot, because Trey Smith he deserves a lot of money. That's going to be on the payroll here for hopefully 5 years because, again, it's going to be a significant amount of cash and try to spread that over as much time as possible and also retain one of your better young players in Trey Smith. So I love the player. I hate the current contract because essentially what's happening right now for Smith, if he were to play on this 1-year franchise tag, it would be about $24 million just for this one season. That would be by far the most of any guard. I believe the next closest is Landon Dickerson with about $21 million. So if they can get him extended, I would love this. That would be an A plus grade. But currently, with the current contract, it's a C. Again, I love the player. Do not like the current contract at all. That's something that they need to fix here over the next couple of days and months in upcoming and as we head into the draft. Looking at we'll get through all of them. Matt Ariza, the 1 year for the punter, he was all right last year. He learned some touch and we'll be happy. I'll be happy. Has a huge leg, one of the biggest legs maybe in the league, but just an absolute lack of touch. Can never, it seems, pin the opposing team within the 20 or 10-yard line. It always just goes bounding into the end zone. So hopefully he can learn that over the offseason. We'll see what happens. A C for the Matt Ariza 1-year contract. Linebacker Nick Bolton, 3 years, $45 million. 30 of those $1 million guaranteed. This is needed. They needed to either keep Justin Reed or Nick Bolton, and I'm not mad that they kept Bolton. They stay younger, Justin Reed. Not that he's old, but getting older compared to Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton is an anchor on this defense, even though he definitely has his areas where he's maybe not as good. He has his pitfalls on the defensive side. The speed is what comes to mind straight off the bat. It's still a good signing. You need your green dot, your captain of the defense with Justin Reed being gone. I'm not mad at all about it. I don't love the contract. I don't think Nick Bolton is a top 5 linebacker. That's what he got paid as. He's currently the 5th highest paid linebacker in the league. But again, Nick Bolton's still extremely valuable in the system. One of the best linebackers when it comes to stopping the run. We saw that time after time last year. It's just in coverage where he definitely has his weaknesses. Overall, I give that a B. Wide receiver Marquise Brown, this was one of my favorite signings and re-signings of the offseason for the Chiefs. It's a 1-year deal worth up to $11 million with incentives. Again, love this signing. Hopefully a full season of Brown's production after last year's freak injury on the first play of preseason. I'm really happy he's back. Probably a top 3 favorite signing of this offseason. You saw that the Chiefs were kind of planning on having a role with Marquise and with Xavier Worthy and a Rashee Rice last year that ended up pretty much being destroyed because of the injury to Marquise Brown, the injury to Rashee Rice. So they had to change some things away. I'm hoping that last year's plan, the 2024 plan, will move forward in action in 2025. Again, love that signing. One of my favorites of the offseason. Mike Caliendo, don't have to spend much time. He's the guard, re-signed. It's just a depth signing experience in that guard position. He will probably be fighting for that left guard starting spot with Kingsley Suamataia, who obviously struggled at the left tackle spot last year, but hopefully with some growth, he can use that athletic frame in that left guard position. But Mike Caliendo, a great depth piece. I'll give it a B. By the way, forgot, Marquise Brown, I give that an A signing. That's one of my favorite signings again. Running back Kareem Hunt. Now, this one might be a polarizing grade. It's a 1-year deal up to $2.5 million. Loved having Kareem back last year. It was good to see, especially the Buccaneers game, walking off that game in Arrowhead. It was an electric scene, and it was great to have him back in Kansas City, kind of on the redemption tour. I am, however, wondering how much left he has in his legs. It definitely, he's lacking that burst that he had when he was a rookie in his first and second years in Kansas City. So we'll see how much he was used up last year. He got a bulk of those loads when Pacheco was down. They picked him up because of Pacheco's injury. And when Pacheco came back, he was not the same as he was earlier in the year and dating back to the past couple of years. I just give that a C+ because I really want to see, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, I want to see a running back drafted to Kansas City this year. Another one of my favorites, defensive end Charles Omenihu. He's back on a 1-year deal worth up to $7 million. Finally, a full season of Charles Omenihu. The first season the Chiefs had him after picking him up from the 49ers. He was dealing with the suspension. And then last year, dealing with the ACL that he had tore in the AFC Championship 2 years prior against the Ravens. So he came back late last year, and he was okay. He was probably the second best edge rusher that Kansas City had last year. He and on the edge, Furious George Karloftis. Those two were going at it on the edge. I'm super excited to have Charles Omenihu back for a full season. I think that's going to be super crucial for the Chiefs, and I think he has a lot of production left in him. He's probably wanting to gain that bigger contract anyways, so we'll see what he can do. I'm hoping for a big year from him. I give that an A-, another high upside, high floor re-signing for the Chiefs. Defensive tackle Mike Pennell, a 1-year deal. He's a beast in the middle. He's huge. He's like 350 pounds. His thighs are thicker than my waist, it feels like, which is saying something because I'm a large guy. He eats up snaps and he eats running backs. A much needed return to the defensive tackle group that is suffering for depth, especially in this offseason. You lose guys like Turk Wharton, Derek Natty. So a big re-signing. I give that a B just because Mike Pennell's not like the greatest player ever, but you definitely needed him for depth. Wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, a 1-year deal. He'll be back with the Chiefs. I love it because he knows the system. He's extremely valuable for what he brings to the team. He's going to be the guy setting the picks, or as the offense calls it, the rub routes over the middle. He knows where he's going to be. The problem is he lacks that juice. I think he's pretty much toast in terms of his legs over all the injuries that he sustained with the Steelers, with the Patriots, with the Chiefs. But again, overall, an okay signing, just a C+. And then long snapper James Winchester, 1 year, $1.65 million guaranteed. Sure, keep some continuity in the special teams room. I'm okay with that. Give that a B. Now moving back up to the free agents. There was a couple of big ones that the Chiefs needed to make and did make. And what I think the Chiefs did the best is they made a roster to where if you put this team out on opening weekend for 2025, they would be fine. They're not lacking in any area where they might have lacked at the end of last season. Obviously, that we saw in the Super Bowl. Don't get me started about the areas that they were lacking. They were deficient in the Super Bowl. They fixed some of those issues, and that's exciting to see in free agency. They didn't necessarily go out and get the big marquee player in free agency, but what they did do is they shored up some of their weaknesses. So let's start with Mike Edwards. The Chiefs did lose Justin Reed to the Saints. It was going to happen. It kind of needed to happen with the contract. They couldn't pay him and Bolton a lot of money. Both of them deserved a lot of money. So Justin understandably went to Louisiana. Back home, I believe he's from Louisiana originally. So the Chiefs picked up a familiar face in the defensive secondary, Mike Edwards. I love this pickup because he, A, already knows the system, and B, he's a valuable veteran presence that was obviously lost with Justin Reed's departure. This safety group is pretty young. You look at Shamari Connor, you look at a Bush. This is a young safety group. I think they have a lot of talent, but they need that glue guy, that Mike Edwards, to come in there. I give that a B+. Two of the bigger free agency signings for the Chiefs, cornerback Christian Fulton and offensive tackle Jalen Moore. Both of them are pretty intriguing in their own rights. For Christian Fulton, a 2-year deal worth $20 million, $15 million guaranteed. I think this is a great pickup because I think he's going to fit nearly perfectly in the Chiefs system, in Steve Spagnuolo's defense. Last year, you saw the deficiency. When Jalen Watson went down with his injury, the fractured ankle, the secondary at a certain point pretty much fell apart, and that's with a guy like Justin Reed and maybe more importantly, a guy like Trent McDuffie doing everything that they could to hold that secondary down. And it struggled because you really lacked that number 2 cornerback, or in this case, the number 3 cornerback that could come in there and not get toast. I mean, we saw Najee Johnson struggle from time to time. Joshua Williams, who was a decent corner but could not go a single play without getting penalized, it felt like. So I think this is a great pickup for what the Chiefs needed. I think Fulton will play extremely well within their system. Again, a much-needed cornerback 2/3. I think him and Watson will fight for that spot. He will, and maybe most importantly, I should have led with this because in the nickel package, when they have 5 defensive backs on the field, what this does, it allows McDuffie to be in that slot position where McDuffie is the best slot corner in the league. He's okay on the outside boundaries, and actually he's well above average on the outside. But where he really is at his best and where he's the most comfortable is in the slot where he can lock down just about anyone in the league. So the nickel becomes extremely promising with Watson, Fulton, and McDuffie. That's a super exciting thing to think about in the Steve Spagnuolo defense. Fulton, he doesn't have the best high-end speed, best high-end acceleration, but he's a cerebral player. And I think, again, he fits perfectly into the Spagnuolo system. A high upside signing, a pretty high floor. I give that an A-. And then moving on to the other big marquee pickup for the Chiefs, offensive tackle Jalen Moore, 2-year deal worth $30 million, $21.2 million guaranteed. He's obviously going to be asked to move to that left tackle position, a spot that was just a revolving door of miscues in unfortunate play last season for the Chiefs. They're going to need him to be great this year. And what this is, and again, it's another high upside, fairly high floor move. Moore is immediately going to be able to come in here and provide a much better left tackle anchor position than the Chiefs had last season. But there is still a lot unknown with them. He was behind the best left tackle in football in Trent Williams with the 49ers and played sparingly, just 4 games last season that he started. He does some things well, and his strengths aren't necessarily what last year's O-line did, which might be a good thing if you ask me. He could be a 1-year rental if it doesn't work out, which is maybe the best part of this deal, because if he's not good this next season, Chiefs just cut him and they're going to save $9 million against the cap. But if he does well, it could be a long-term solution. So it's kind of a high risk, low risk, high reward for the Chiefs, and I think this is a pretty good signing for the Chiefs overall to pick up Jalen Moore on the offensive tackle side. This is maybe my favorite pickup just because of the vibes. Gardner Minshew, a 1-year deal, the ultimate vibes guy on the backup in the quarterback room. So one of the best facial hairs, one of the best heads of facial hair in the league, the mustache, the beard that never quits. And he's shown that he can play in spurts, which I like that as well. And so if Patty goes down at some point, I'm okay with Gardner coming in there for a couple of games. I give that an A+. By the way, I forgot. The Jalen Moore, I give that a B+ for my report card. Running back Elijah Mitchell, a 1-year deal worth up to $3.5 million. He's injury prone, and I would still like to see, again, Kansas City draft a running back, but he has the juice that the running back currently lacks. Kareem Hunt definitely does not have it. Isaiah Pacheco did not have it after the injury last season. So he's got that high-end speed that the Chiefs running back room desperately needs. So we'll see what he can contribute. I give that one a C-. I'm a little skeptical on what he can provide out of the gate. And then the final pickup I want to go over, Jerry Tillery, a defensive lineman. He's going to fill up in the defensive tackle spot, a 1-year deal, former first-round pick, and he's been okay in terms of production over the last couple of years. One positive is he could be looking for his last big payday. He turns 29 this next season, which is getting to the end of the prime, the start of the prime / the end of the prime for that defensive tackle position. So if he does well with the Chiefs this year, you could be looking at some big bucks down the line. I mean, you saw Turk Wharton. He got, I think, $32 million for 3 years. So if Jerry Tillery can have any kind of production similar to what Wharton did last year, which I think he could, he definitely has that talent, then you're going to get yourself a payday. Maybe not with the Chiefs, but you're going to get yourself a payday and set yourself up for the rest of your NFL career. Well, that wraps up the offseason moves for the Chiefs in free agency and then re-signing. I think overall, if I was giving them a grade, I think B+, A-. I really think that they addressed a lot of the problems that this team had last year, and that's one of the biggest things you need to do in free agency. If you can do that with your team, you're going to put yourself in a pretty good spot heading into the draft. Real quick, and maybe we'll have some time later this week or next week before the draft to go over my wish list. I have a running back, preferably one with some juice. We talked about Elijah Mitchell maybe providing that, but we'll kind of see what he does. A defensive line, specifically at that D tackle spot, because they just need depth right now for the Chiefs, and you can have a rookie come in there, plug up some snaps, and be decent. That's all really they need at the defensive tackle spot when you have an all-world Chris Jones. Offensive tackle, you need some depth for the future. And then finally, tight end, a young Padawan as Kelsey rides into the sunset. I still love Noah Gray, and I do think that Wiley provides some definitely some intrigue. He didn't play a ton last year, was injured a lot, but we'll see what he can do. If not, I'd love to see the Chiefs pick up another tight end in the draft. Well, that does it for my Kansas City free agency report card. We're going to wrap it up. Again, we have K-State baseball at the bottom of the hour, 5:30 here on News Radio KMAN. They're taking on Missouri State. Again, we'll be back to wrap up the game after these words.
Miss any of the show?
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Never fear, sports fan. Check out the Game podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and newsradiokman.com.
Want to know a quick way to scare off a window contractor? Ask them to stain your new windows. I'm not kidding. Staining windows is an intricate, lengthy process. So most window contractors just don't do it. They'll install plain, unfinished windows on your home, then leave the staining up to you. Midland Exteriors is different. We're Topeka's window contractor specializing in gorgeous, custom pre-stained windows. Our master staining artisans formulate a made-to-order stain that perfectly matches your home's trim. Each window then goes through a meticulous 3-hour staining process in our special facility. The result? A rich, luxurious finish that makes your new windows look absolutely stunning. And because we stain our windows before we install them, you don't have to deal with the smelly, messy staining process in your home. For a free estimate on beautiful, efficient, finished windows, call Midland Exteriors at 855-735-8255 or visit midlandexteriors.com. That's 855-735-8255 or midlandexteriors.com. We would be honored to hear from you. 855-735-8255 or midlandexteriors.com.
At McCown Gordon Construction, we improve lives by building authentic relationships. No matter the project size, our clients enjoy unmatched talent and resources in the Manhattan area market. Early collaboration with our pre-construction team ensures cost certainty, preventing surprises. Whether it's education space for learning or healthcare space for healing, we build to serve the community. McCown Gordon Construction, proud builder for K-State and the KSU Foundation. Visit McCownGordon.com.
Spice up your event with Qdoba Catering. Our burrito bowls, nachos, and salads will taste oh so delicioso with juicy smoked brisket and adobo marinated grilled chicken. Fresh fajita veggies and hand-smashed guac will add a burst of flavor to your meal. Place your order today. Qdoba, united by flavor.
Graduations, prom after parties, team meetings, Cinco de Mayo, family celebrations. For any reason, anytime you have a group to feed, Qdoba Catering is perfect. Give us a call or order online today.
Buck Roofing focuses on customer service by responding to the roofing concerns of residential and commercial properties with the utmost professional service for nearly 20 years. Call for a free no-obligation estimate at 785-230-9379.
No matter who we are or where we come from, we all experience difficulties in life.
Military veterans know that sometimes it takes strength and determination to make it through.
Whether it's obvious physical challenges or struggles on the inside, it takes strength to ask for help when you need it.
I knew that I had to get support, not just for me, but for the sake of my wife and kids.
Talking about it has helped me feel more like myself again.
Honestly, it was hard to open up at first, but it's changed my life for the better.
Learn how veterans like us have reached out for help. And hear stories of strength and recovery at maketheconnection.net.
I'm Cole Betchendorf with a game sports update. 2 more Wildcat women have entered the portal Tuesday with Imani Lester and Gisela Sanchez both set to transfer. Lester averaged 2.4 points per game and 2.7 rebounds per game last season. Her career high came against UCF in the Big 12 tournament with 8 points. Sanchez averaged 4.2 points per game on 15 minutes per game last season, with her season high coming against Kansas on senior day when she had 12 points. With the 2 departures, K-State now has 6 open roster spots. After being swept over the weekend at Oklahoma State, the K-State baseball team looks to get right at home tonight hosting Missouri State. The Bears wrapped up a weekend series at Southern Illinois yesterday with a 9-5 10-inning win. The Bears are 16-14 overall, but 7-2 in Missouri Valley Conference games, while K-State seeks its 21st win against 11 losses. 10 of those 20 wins have come at home as the Cats have not dropped a tilt at Tointon Family Stadium to date. Coverage begins at 5:30 on News Radio KMAN. U.S. District Judge Claudia Wilkin wants college sports landmark proposal reworked. House versus NCAA, a proposed settlement of 3 athlete compensation antitrust cases against the NCAA, proposes a myriad of changes, including roster limits. As the hearing concluded on Monday, Wilkin all but said that she will not grant final approval without changes. All right, really quickly, wrapping up the game here on News Radio KMAN. I'm Cole Betchendorf again. K-State baseball coverage starting at 5:30, taking on Missouri State. One thing I want to talk about, I know we never talk about NBA, and for good reason. I mean, we're not too big fans of NBA here on the game. Mitch definitely does not watch the NBA at all, which I can't blame him for because it has its faults. But what I want to talk about is the craziness going on in the Western Conference. My Timberwolves are in the middle of it. Seeds 3 through 8 right now in the Western Conference, separated by just 2 games. From the 4 to the 8, by just a half game, the Timberwolves right in the middle of all of that. It's scary hours for me as a fan of the Timberwolves. I'm terrified. 4 games left in the regular season. The Grizzlies play the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. The Warriors play the Clippers. Basically, it's a bloodbath to end this season for the West. It's going to be scary. Again, I'm just terrified of what's going to happen. Well, a full 2-hour show tomorrow on the game. We'll talk to Mason Voth from K-State Online. And then, again, K-State baseball taking on Missouri State here pretty quickly. This weekend, taking on UCF. That'll start Friday at 6. Well, for Mitch Fortner, who's at the K-State game right now, I'm Cole Dutchendorf. Go Cats.
Last week got off to a good start for Kansas State, although it got a little hairy in Wichita. K-State still prevailed against the Wichita State Shockers to open up the week with a midweek conference road victory. Things, unfortunately, though, went south during the weekend in Stillwater. Always a dickens of a place for the Wildcats to play. The Cats battled back Friday night, lost 4-3, didn't play Saturday because of the weather, and played 2 on Sunday, losing both games of the Twin Bill to the Cowboys. It's the first time this year K-State has been swept in conference play, and it was the first time K-State had been shut out in the first game of Sunday's doubleheader. It hadn't happened the entire year. That is, my friends, the game of baseball. Now, Kansas State's back home for 4 straight, and the last time that took place, the Cats won all 4. Can they get the offense jump-started tonight against a weary Missouri